I was petrified about it, by the way. And, we got through it. And I think it was during that time period when I started.
When Simon Cowell first became a father, his world changed in ways he never thought possible. For years, he had been known as the tough television judge who could break a singer's dream with a single sharp comment. But when his son Eric was born, Simon found himself overwhelmed with emotions that words could hardly describe. He held his son only minutes after birth, staring at him with a mix of joy, fear, and unconditional love. In interviews, he even admitted that before Eric was born, he wondered if he might feel more attached to his beloved dogs than to a baby. That thought disappeared the second he held Eric. Fatherhood softened the man the world once saw as cold and unshakable. Simon suddenly found himself planning a future that included not only television shows and music empires, but also bedtime stories, family holidays, and the hope of watching Eric grow into adulthood. But life, in its cruel way, had other plans, and that joy would one day be tested in ways Simon never expected. For most of Eric's childhood, Simon and his partner Lauren Silverman managed a normal family life behind the flashing cameras. Eric was a playful boy who had his father's charm and a unique view of the world. Diagnosed on the autism spectrum at an early age, Eric had his own way of expressing himself, and Simon admired his son's brilliance and individuality. But by September 2025, things began to change. At first it was small, headaches, a little confusion, or moments when Eric seemed distant. Simon thought it was part of growing up and maybe connected to autism. But as the symptoms worsened, a father's instincts told him something was wrong. He arranged for Eric to be seen at a leading neurological clinic in London, sparing no expense and calling in favors with some of the best doctors around the globe. Tests followed: MRIs, scans, blood work, and long examinations that stretched for days. Simon remained calm in public, but in private he was restless, pacing hospital corridors and clenching his fists when he thought no one could see. Then came the devastating results. Doctors revealed that Eric had a rare degenerative neurological disease that affects fewer than 1 in a million children. It was cruel not only because of how rare and unpredictable it was, but also because it specifically attacked children with unique neurological makeups. In Eric's case, his autism made him even more vulnerable. The diagnosis was a blow so heavy that Simon felt his entire world collapse in an instant. After the diagnosis, Simon faced the impossible. His son's life would be shorter and harder than any father could accept. Yet the world still expected Simon Cowell to sit behind his judging table, smile for cameras, and deliver witty critiques. Millions watched him weekly on Britain's Got Talent, unaware that inside he was breaking. He wore his mask well, but behind the scenes the cracks began to show. Simon started forgetting contestants' names, losing focus during live shows and staring off into space as if haunted by thoughts he could not escape. He stopped attending social events and grew distant from friends, often cutting conversations short when the topic of family came up. In his dressing room, he would spend long minutes looking at pictures of Eric on his phone, memorizing his smile, his eyes, and wondering how much time they had left together. Makeup artists noticed his pale face and the heavy shadows under his eyes from endless sleepless nights. Assistants whispered about his strange new requests, urgent meetings with doctors abroad, sudden trips to obscure clinics, and constant calls with researchers. For the first time in decades, Simon's empire seemed less important to him. He began selling off assets and redirecting his fortune into medical research, hoping to buy his son more time. This was no longer about ratings or careers. This was about being a father, willing to sacrifice everything for the slim chance of saving his child. The moment the world saw, Simon's mask shatter came during a live broadcast of Britain's Got Talent in October 2025. A 12-year-old boy with autism performed a powerful song that moved the audience to tears. As Simon prepared to give feedback, he froze. Looking at the young contestant, he suddenly saw his own son standing there, full of potential but robbed of a future by a disease no one could cure. His hands trembled, and for the first time in television history, Simon Cowell broke down in front of millions. Tears streamed down his face as he sat silently, unable to speak. The entire studio went quiet, sensing that something extraordinary was unfolding. After nearly half a minute, he whispered words of encouragement to the boy, but his voice carried the raw pain of a grieving father. Moments later, Simon excused himself and walked off stage. Backstage, he made a phone call that shocked his entire team. Without negotiation or hesitation, Simon announced his immediate retirement from television. There would be no final season, no farewell tour, no gradual exit. The man who had built one of the largest entertainment empires in history was leaving everything behind, because nothing mattered more than his son. Simon Cowell's sudden retirement sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. Television networks scrambled, advertisers panicked, and production companies faced chaos. Britain's Got Talent, The X Factor, America's Got Talent, and dozens of international versions of his shows relied heavily on Simon's presence. Suddenly, their future was uncertain. Emergency meetings filled boardrooms as executives tried to calculate the financial losses. Thousands of people's jobs were tied to Simon's shows, and countless careers depended on his approval and guidance. Music artists who had signed under his label wondered what would happen next. Even Wall Street reacted, as entertainment stocks wavered under the uncertainty of losing one of the industry's most powerful figures. To outsiders, it seemed unthinkable that Simon would walk away so abruptly. But behind the scenes, Simon was quietly liquidating everything. Properties were sold, contracts dissolved, and investments pulled, all redirected to fund Eric's treatments and global medical research. The empire he had spent decades building was being dismantled piece by piece, but Simon didn't care. To him, no amount of fame, fortune, or power could compare to the life of his son. Simon Cowell's life story is often told as a tale of fame and fortune, but it begins with a childhood filled with curiosity, ambition, and the drive to succeed. Born in London in 1959, Simon was not the most disciplined student in school. Teachers described him as distracted and restless, but even at a young age, he showed signs of the determination that would one day make him one of the most powerful men in the entertainment industry. Simon admitted in later years that he was not particularly interested in academics. Instead, he was fascinated by music and television. His father, who worked in the music industry, gave Simon small opportunities to explore the world of entertainment. At first, these were modest jobs, such as working in the mailroom at record companies. While many people would see this as boring, Simon treated it as a learning experience, watching how deals were made and how talent was managed. Those early years shaped his strong opinions and his sharp sense of what the public wanted. It was during this time that he realized he was not destined to be a singer or performer, but rather someone who could shape stars and guide them to success. Simon Cowell's rise was not fast or easy. In fact, for many years, he struggled to find his place in the entertainment world. He worked for various record labels, but his projects did not always succeed. Some even failed so badly that he ended up broke and living with his parents again in his 30s. This was a low point in his life, and he later described it as both humiliating and motivating. Instead of giving up, Simon decided to study the industry more carefully. He realized that the key to success was understanding what ordinary people loved and giving it to them in a way that felt fresh and exciting. His big breakthrough came in the 1990s when he worked with novelty acts like the British boy band Five and the opera duo Il Divo, as well as reality TV music competitions. But it was the creation of shows like Pop Idol in the UK and later American Idol in the United States that made Simon a household name. His blunt honesty, tough criticism, and no-nonsense style made him both loved and hated, but most importantly, unforgettable. What set Simon Cowell apart from other television personalities was his fearless honesty. He was not afraid to tell contestants the hard truth, even if it hurt their feelings. Some called him cruel, while others admired him for saying what the audience was really thinking. Behind the scenes, however, many who knew Simon personally described him as kind, generous, and surprisingly shy. This contrast between his on-screen persona and his real-life personality became one of the fascinating parts of his story. Simon admitted that part of his tough guy image was a character he played to make the show more entertaining. After all, in the world of television, drama sells. Yet he also believed that honesty helped aspiring singers grow stronger. He never wanted to give false hope to someone who truly did not have the talent to succeed in the brutal music industry. Over time, audiences began to respect him for his courage to speak the truth, even if it made him unpopular. This balance between villain and mentor became the secret to his success and helped his shows dominate global television for years. In recent years, Simon Cowell's life has taken a different turn. After suffering a serious back injury in 2020 from an electric bike accident, Simon was forced to slow down and rethink his lifestyle. The injury required surgery and months of recovery, which gave him time to reflect on his health and habits. He admitted that for years he lived with too much stress, poor eating habits, and little concern for his physical well-being. The accident was a wake-up call. Determined to live healthier, Simon lost weight, improved his diet, and started spending more time with his family, especially his young son, Eric. This transformation surprised many fans who had always known him as the sharp-tongued TV judge. Suddenly, Simon was showing a softer, more human side, smiling more often and openly expressing his gratitude for life. The once feared judge began to reveal his vulnerabilities, and in doing so, he connected with fans on a deeper level. People admired not just his career success, but also his courage to change and grow as a person. Simon Cowell's influence on modern entertainment is undeniable. He reshaped how the world discovers talent, creating a format that has been copied in dozens of countries. Shows like Britain's Got Talent, The X Factor, and American Idol gave ordinary people the chance to become global superstars. Without Simon, the world may never have known artists like One Direction, Leona Lewis, or Susan Boyle. His legacy is not just about sharp comments or TV drama. It is about giving millions of people the courage to chase their dreams. Even though he has faced criticism, lawsuits, and media scandals, Simon remains one of the most powerful figures in show business. As he continues to mentor talent and produce shows, he has also become a symbol of resilience, showing that even after failure, accidents, and personal struggles, it is possible to rise again stronger than before. Fans around the world respect him not just as a judge, but as a man who turned his vision into reality and changed the face of television forever. For most of his career, Simon Cowell was known as the man who lived for work. He openly admitted in many interviews that he never thought he would have children or settle down in a traditional family life. His world revolved around music, television, and business. But in 2014, everything changed when Simon welcomed his son Eric with his partner Lauren Silverman. Becoming a father transformed him in ways that even he did not expect. Simon said that Eric gave him a new sense of purpose and joy that work alone could not provide. He softened, smiled more often, and even admitted that being a dad made him a better person. While Simon was once seen as someone who thrived on control and strict judgment, fatherhood introduced him to patience, love, and vulnerability. His relationship with Eric is often described as warm and playful, and he has said many times that being with his son is the happiest part of his day. Fans who had long known Simon as a TV villain were surprised to see this tender, fatherly side of him, which only added more depth to his already fascinating public image. While Simon Cowell's success is undeniable, his journey has not been without controversy. Over the years, he has faced criticism for being too harsh on contestants, with some accusing him of being cruel or insensitive. There were moments on television where his blunt comments reduced hopeful singers to tears, and critics argued that this was unnecessary entertainment at the expense of vulnerable people. Additionally, some of his shows, such as The X Factor, faced backlash for creating too much pressure on young contestants and not providing enough mental health support. Simon has also been involved in disputes with former colleagues and artists, which often made headlines in the media. Despite all this, Simon's ability to face criticism and keep moving forward is part of what has made him such a powerful figure. He has admitted in interviews that he sometimes regretted being too tough, but maintained that honesty was better than false encouragement. These controversies, while damaging at times, also kept him in the spotlight, reminding the world